Pittsburgh CLO's 2026 PNC Summer of Musicals. Feel the music with Beautiful, the Carole King musical, the inspiring story of a girl from Brooklyn who became a chart-topping legend. Mean Girls, the fiercely funny smash hit musical based on Tina Fey's hit film. And don't miss the Tony Award-winning sensation, Suffs, the bold, brilliant story of the women who fought tirelessly for the right to vote. 3 must-see shows, 1 unforgettable summer of musicals. This June and July at the Benedum Center. Get your tickets today, pittsburghclo.org.
Today's show is supported by the Athens County Visitors Bureau. My better half, some of y'all know this, is a bobcat, so I have spent my share of spring and autumn nights sipping Black Widows at the Pigskin. But when school is out for the summer, Athens County is a totally different vibe. So laid back. Same small town, same lush, picturesque hills, but basically no crowds. Think over 100 miles of mountain bike trails, scenic paddling, hiking, and winding back roads you can explore. You can eat local food, catch live music, do some shopping, so much more. I challenge you, go beyond Court Street and visit AthensOhio.com for more information. It's more than a place, it's a place to belong. This is City Cast Pittsburgh. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. Colin, Mallory, what was your worst college housing experience?
College proper, I think the worst experience was living in a house that did not have insulation in the upper floors, and so our heating bills went sky high. And I think part of his effort to make up for this was that our landlord provided us with a large stack of Playboys and Penthouse magazines.
Were you of legal age at this point?
I was, yeah. I would have been 21. This was my first off-campus housing experience.
But does this make it your worst or your best?
I mean, there's some fond memories for sure. I cannot say how many of them were related to the stack of magazines. None of them were related to the lack of insulation.
I learned so much about you every time we record. Mallory, yours?
So my senior year of college, I ended up in a triple. It was
Room?
2 of my friends and I, yes, and the rest of the facility was hockey players. And every Monday morning we would get an email like, will whoever left a head-shaped dent in the hallway please come forward or everyone will be charged? Will whoever peed in the oven please come forward or everyone will be charged?
Wow.
Okay. Well, y'all's are fun. I'm not going to share mine. Mine's too bleak. Someone dies in mine.
Oh, that's...
I know. It was poor architectural design. We'll put it that way.
Wow.
I am with executive producer Mallory Falk and City Cast Pittsburgh contributor and City Paper managing editor Colin Williams. Hello.
Hello.
We are going to talk this week about tornadoes and how the National Weather Service, of all places, called out a certain very famous musician. There's some new life for some old spaces here in Pittsburgh, including that big ol' empty prison on the North Side. Plus, we've got a win, a loss, and a thing to know. And on today's members-only bonus segment, we are talking about one of Pittsburgh's most evil exports. And if you want to know who we're talking about and why, you have to become a CityCast Pittsburgh neighbor. All the details are at membership.citycast.fm. So we're going to talk first about Morgan Wallen again. I feel like it's like the lie heard round Western Pennsylvania. The country singer, of course, who canceled the second night of his 2-day stop in Pittsburgh. That was this past weekend. We did talk about this a little bit on Tuesday, but at the time, all we knew is that he said he had canceled it really at the 11th hour. And it was something about weather, and maybe he had been advised not to play. But then Pittsburgh came with the receipts.
Oh, man, we actually published a piece about this earlier in the week, and we had to update it because there was such an outcry about the circumstances around it. And that included actually our mayor, Corey O'Connor, weighing in on this matter to say that he had not, in fact, been consulted about this very sudden cancellation that left a lot of cowboy boot-wearing yinzers in dire straits on the North Shore.
Do you think that's just self-preservation or is that the truth?
I mean, that's a fair question. I will say I think it's the truth. It seems like, Wallen was trying to say that he had consulted his finest eggheads about this. And it turns out it seems like mainly he consulted himself.
Yeah, maybe he just didn't feel like playing this time. I don't know. It did remind me that the last time he was in town, I don't know if it was the last time, in 2023 when he was in town, was the infamous Romper Stomper incident.
Was that the fight outside the public porta potty?
The porta potties, yes. Where women are yanking each other by the hair. Someone gets literally kicked into a porta-john.
I think that marked the official moment where Kenny Chesney handed his crown off to Morgan Wallen as like the number one rabble-rouser on the North Shore in all of Pittsburgh, perhaps.
Which that's part of why we're talking about this, because I can't tell you how many notes I got of people, I guess, new to town that have no idea about Kenny Chesney discourse here in Pittsburgh. Like, did not realize Colin's face, did not realize what he means to the city and to the North Shore and to our trash collection efforts over the years. Someone explain.
Yes. So if you are newer to the Pittsburgh region, Kenny Chesney was notorious for...
Not him personally.
Not him, yes. In the aftermath of Kenny Chesney concerts, there would just be piles and piles of trash left behind. It was not our city's finest moment. It did not paint Kenny Chesney fans in the finest light.
I had friends that worked in hospital settings some years ago. And I remember like in the early 2010s era, they had a Kenny count at work where like as people were coming into the ER from Kenny Chesney related injuries, they would have a little scratch mark on the wall. It kind of reminds me of like some scenes we've seen depicted in The Pit.
So we definitely need a new term for this. I propose fallen for Wallen, or maybe ballin' for Wallen.
Ooh.
Plenty of ways to get injured at a Morgan Wallen concert, I'm sure.
This is also making me think The Pit definitely needs a flashback episode set the day of a Kenny Chesney concert. You know, I had originally had the pitch that this season they should just have like a steady stream of furries popping in throughout 4th of July.
You did get one furry.
It was just one furry, but that means the idea still stands. You can have a flashback episode where throughout the course of the episode, you've got injured Kenny Chesney fans showing up.
Yeah, actually, I do think he did play the weekend of July 4th once. If this is correct, if the internet is right, it was back in 2011. So you're onto something, Mallory. The other piece to touch on in all of this, once again, got a lot of folks reaching out because part of the National Weather Service speaking up about this in the first place, being like, yeah, no one talked to us about this in Morgan Wallen's camp, was because they always do like kind of a retrospective, I don't know if that's the right word, but they always do this thing where they like analyze the storms after they hit. We got a ton of storms over the weekend. And so they said 6 tornadoes in the Pittsburgh region, in Fayette, Washington, and Westmoreland counties. And I heard from people seemingly genuinely shocked that we can get tornadoes here in Pittsburgh. I always think it's funny that Pittsburghers, for some reason, sometimes think that they're immune to some types of weather.
Well, I mean, we all watched Twister as children, and it seemed like something that happened somewhere else.
Is that your excuse?
I was really surprised, actually, like even just a couple years ago when I revisited those old maps of Tornado Alley that used to be in our textbooks as a kid. They really make it seem like they only happen in the Great Plains. But I think Arkansas is one of the most affected areas recently by tornadoes, and it's very mountainous there. Like the Ozarks run right through the middle of the state.
Yep.
Also, this speaks to the fact that a lot of people may not have been around in Pittsburgh when the tornado hit Mount Washington in the 2000s. That was
1998. We fact checked it.
1998. I'm sorry. That one's really like sort of seared into the memory of many Yinzers who were around for it. And I even remember hearing about it from my grandparents at the time.
It shocked people. Like I think there was this prevailing opinion, not just in Pittsburgh, but all over, like tornadoes can't hit cities, which is just not true. That's not how weather works. Take it from a Tennessean. Tornadoes can hit anywhere if the conditions are right, which, to be clear, is warm meets cold and the correct dew point. In addition to that Mount Washington one, there was also one in Highland Park in 2024.
Oh, yeah,
I think it was right by the zoo, huh?
Yeah.
It made me wonder because I've seen reporting in other cities about their like animal evacuation plans. And I'm curious how, you got to get like, I remember specifically hearing a story about how all the flamingos at the Dallas Zoo got located once. And it's raised a lot of questions for me about the system we have in place here.
Yeah. To be clear, these were both super small. The way they calculate tornadoes is like on an Fujita scale or an enhanced Fujita scale now. But the one in Mount Washington was an F1 back in the day. The one in Highland Park, depending on the story you read, it was EF0 or EF1. Either way, a minor storm as tornadoes go. But no tornado is really a good thing. Today's episode is sponsored by the Frick Pittsburgh Museums and Gardens. If you want a taste of Paris right here in Pittsburgh, their next exhibition is perfect. French Modern's Matisse Renoir Degas is coming very soon. We're getting in work from really famous French artists, painters and sculptors, folks like Cézanne and Rodin. And you don't need to be a dedicated student of art history to appreciate this work. Yes, they are legends now, but back in their day, these artists were considered radicals. And some really put a foundational mark on art movements that we still celebrate today. Things like realism, impressionism, cubism, surrealism, and more. I feel like it's easy to forget, but it's in part because of artists and masterworks like these that we think about Paris and Parisian culture the way we still do today. I, for one, am really excited to see this exhibition, maybe chase it with a stop by the Frick's little cafe and a stroll through the gardens. It's going to be so much fun. Look for French Modern's Matisse Renoir Degas at the Frick starting June 20th and get your tickets at thefrickpittsburgh.org. City Cast Pittsburgh is brought to you today by the Westmoreland Museum of Art. If you've never been, you're not behind. I checked out the Westmoreland for the very first time earlier this year, and y'all, I was blown away by how much art and creativity they have packed into this pretty compact space. And they're bringing a new interactive experience to us this summer. They're doing Puttapalooza, art-inspired mini golf. Seriously, it's open now and runs through August 30th. It's an indoor 9-hole mini golf course that you can actually play. So it's for all ages, $10 for adults, $5 for kids, and anyone under 4 plays for free. There's a cash bar on Fridays, and everyone plays for free on Sundays. Plus, it's super special because everything on the course is inspired by artwork actually displayed in the museum. Athleticism not required, nor is registration. There's also a scavenger hunt. They really thought of everything. Regular museum entry and parking is always free, and while you're visiting, make sure you check out exhibits like Steel Valley Visions and Play Ball, The Art of George Sosnak. Learn more at thewestmoreland.org. All right, we're going to move on to some new life for some old spaces here in the city or around the city. We'll start with the old Western Penitentiary site. It sounds like it might be spared from demolition, given a second life, but God, there have been so many plans for this thing over the years.
There have. So I will be curious to see if this actually amounts to anything or is just like yet another interesting factoid in a future article. But right now, Trib Live is reporting that PennDOT is considering redeveloping the site, but officials haven't said what exactly they have in mind. So not a lot of details there. As a reminder, this is that former state prison on the north side. It's kind of striking looking, which is a bizarre thing to say about a prison, but it's this Gothic style. I was doing a little deep dive on it prepping for here, and Public Source had this interesting story going through its history. Apparently in the 70s, Pennsylvania's governor said that the ancient architecture helped make jailbreaks easier as part of his campaign to get it shut down.
Did he say how?
Yeah. I have questions.
Is it like the sandstone was so eroded that they could just kind of like scratch it away?
Or, I mean, I don't know what kind of shape the gate was in at the time, but like it's the jail, if you've ever, they call it the jail trail. Like there is a bicycle and pedestrian trail that runs right along the river. It's really beautiful, but like the gate next to this thing is not in great shape. I don't know what it looked like 50 years ago, but if that is the only thing they had guarding the exterior of this thing, I can see how possibly he may have had a point.
Unfortunately, I don't know all the...
What about your deep dive, Mallory?
Okay, I guess it was really more of a surface level swim.
A snorkel?
Yeah. But yeah, so this was built in the early 1800s and it permanently closed in 2017. At the time, the state was facing a major budget shortage and officials said closing the facility would save like tens of millions of dollars. Something I found really interesting was that I guess at the time there were a bunch of different prisons the state was considering closing, and they chose West Penn because they said it was the only one that was considered prime real estate and likely to get repurposed quickly. It's along the waterfront. So I think rereading that coverage almost a decade later when it's been sitting abandoned since 2017 is pretty fascinating.
But it's had some things happen there. Like it's been a major filming location over the years.
Yeah, they filmed Mayor of Kingstown there. As recently as a few months ago, I saw a bunch of film equipment that was sitting out, like black cranes and various like lighting devices and things like that. They filmed Mindhunter there. They filmed the very excellent miniseries Escape at Dannemora there in part, which is definitely recommend checking that out.
I've never heard of this. this?
It's really, really good.
Okay.
Patricia Arquette is amazing in it. Benicio del Toro's in it.
I'm getting so many thumbs up in this room right now.
But in general, I mean, it is also not that surprising to me that they haven't torn this down, in part because what would they do with it besides, film stuff there? I mean, there's a water treatment plant that has some interesting smells coming off of it directly across the street from it. I mean, I saw a proposal floated, and this actually a family friend of ours mentioned this at one point, that they thought it would be great to turn it into an RV park, which I think would be really interesting. But, other people have said, and City Paper actually published an op-ed to this effect, that this is a site that, while maybe historic, was also the site of a lot of suffering for a lot of people. And some folks in the neighborhood have less than stellar memories of this prison as, a place where they or their family members were incarcerated. So it's an interesting argument, and it makes sense that, especially with our bureaucracy, it's taken this long to get some resolution there. But yeah, I'll be curious to see if this PennDOT thing materializes. Like, what would they use it for?
Right.
Water
in the
taxis?
No, that's not going to happen.
Dare to dream.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the PennDOT press secretary told Trib Live that they're looking into whether the site could, quote, help enhance our operations in the region and save taxpayer dollars. So whatever that means, maybe water taxis, probably not water taxis. But, the state a few years ago said it was planning to demolish this site by 2027.
Almost there.
Yeah, we're almost there. I feel like it's really like if something else is going to happen, it's got to happen relatively soon. Yeah, I guess we'll see.
We'll move on now to another historical space here in Pittsburgh. This still on the north side, but deeper kind of in the War Streets area. The Allegheny YMCA has finally reopened.
Yes, I was on hand for the press conference for this, and the space looks really nice. This building has been open for about 100 years. It's notable. It's got really nice arched windows on the outside of it. They've preserved all of those historic elements, the facade. They've done some work to kind of stabilize the building. But this has been a core community institution on North Avenue for a really long time. And one of the things that they were very keen to highlight in this press conference in particular is that the YMCA is a really important part of our city's housing mix. So in addition to the fact that they've got, a gym space, which now has new exercise equipment, and they've got this really cool log cabin room that kind of reminded me of like a nationality room in the Cathedral of Learning.
I've been in there not since the renovation. I've been in there so many times. I've never seen a log cabin room.
Yeah, it's like right off the side of the main gym. And when you go inside, it feels like you're in a log cabin. Apparently, it was designed this way to encourage urbanites to go check out YMCA's campsites in the countryside. So I actually don't know if YMCA is still even maintaining campsites, but they have this log cabin room now newly refurbished.
Blown away. Okay, I'm absolutely going just for that.
But the single room occupancy housing has been fully rehabilitated. And what that means is there are, I believe it's 89 units of housing inside this YMCA. It's similar to the one on Center Avenue that has almost 80 single room occupancy units of housing. And these rooms are pretty basic dormitory style residences, but they have now gotten some very important additions, namely elevators. They're now fully ADA compliant. There's air conditioning inside the space, which it did not previously have.
Oh my God, it was so rough. I went to costumed bike rides in their upstairs space a few times. They always did it like in different parts of the year. God, try riding your bicycle in a spin class in an alligator costume. Oh, it was rough. There was a guy next to me with a hot dog. It was terrible.
That sounds extremely sweaty.
It was so sweaty. They had fans blowing, but there's like nothing you can do in the space. Pre-air conditioning.
But so part of the reason that they didn't actually have adequate AC in this is that Carolyn Grady, who's the senior vice president at the Pittsburgh Y, actually said as we were walking through the space that it had basically been wired originally like a single family home. So they had one microwave for all of the residents because otherwise it could potentially trip a breaker.
You know what? That tracks. Because I remember there was like a space where they had it was like the cardio room with the ellipticals, and the situation they had with the cords and the extension situation, it was very clearly so precarious. And they were very careful to tell you to please don't tap that with your foot when you walked by.
You turn off all the ellipticals while people are on them.
Yeah.
But so it has been completely rewired. The bathrooms have switched from gang style showers and basically public bathrooms into much more private facilities. So people have space to change and clean up and all this other stuff. So the housing has just been really upgraded. This is something that's been happening with other Ys in the city, and it's also been with the help of Action Housing, a local organization that does a lot to keep shelter over people's heads. But the county and the state were really keen to highlight the role that this plays in essentially easing the burden on people who may not have shelter, might be lower income, are struggling with their work situation. That yet, now there are these climate controlled single room occupancy units that are a way for people to get off the street.
Yeah. And I've heard so much discourse, I guess, about single room occupancy, like as a concept, because like culturally, we've just moved away from that as a model, but it is a missing piece as it relates to like just having enough housing for a city that we want to be growing. But even the folks that are here now.
And I have actually never been to this space. I guess to my great shame, I did not realize I was missing out on a log cabin. But one new addition that I also thought was really nice is that there's a childcare facility on site so that people can have a place for their children to go.
Yeah, this is a multi-room component of the space. So they have a kids zone downstairs that serves people who are going to be using the gym and, might be in for an hour and their kids can be supervised during that. But on the second floor, they actually have a full childcare facility that'll have daycare slots. So it's taking some of the, pressure off of other community institutions. I mean, especially in America where childcare isn't really treated as a right. This is helping to just broaden the amount of people who can benefit from those services. Because if there's one thing I know from talking to my parent friends, it is that childcare is at a premium.
Year and a half on a wait list.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think I was close to a year to get a full, like a 5-day-a-week situation. And it's an enormous amount of money. I hope the YMCA has figured out some kind of payment that makes sense for that model. Last one for our old-ish section. One Pittsburgh building is going to go back to its original purpose. So the University of Pittsburgh is going to stop using the Hampton Inn to house their own students.
Yes, this one is fascinating to me. So in case you missed it, last fall, a record number of new freshmen enrolled at Pitt, about 5,800 students, and there was not enough space to house them all. I know it's always this delicate balance of trying to figure out like how many students you accept will actually enroll, and it seems like they did not quite get that math right last year.
I mean, with places like the towers to fill up, like they're so rough.
But so they ended up leasing several spaces to house students because there were not enough beds, including the Hampton Inn in Oakland. Up to 250 freshmen lived there. I think I've said on the show before that my husband teaches language at Pitt, and one of his students was actually in the Hampton Inn. One of his assignments is getting students to give a little college tour in Spanish, including like if they want their dorm. And so he has a video of the student who's like, "¿Por qué mi dormitorio está en un hotel? Tengo un baño que me gusta." And showing off this like really nice single bathroom that you normally do not get as a college freshman. But Pitt had planned to do the same thing again this coming year, putting upperclassmen in the Hampton Inn instead of freshmen. The assignments had already been made. And then the city's Zoning Board of Adjustments ruled that in order to do that, to keep this lease at the Hampton Inn, Pitt would need a new permit because housing students in hotel rooms amounts to using it as a dormitory.
The zoning board strikes again.
Yeah. So Pitt originally was going to try to dispute this and appeal it, and then I guess decided that wasn't worth it. They are now ending their lease, and students will no longer be kicking back at the Hampton Inn, which I feel like if you thought you were going to be spending your senior year in a hotel room and now it's just whatever housing is still available on campus that no one else wanted, take your pick, like that would be a huge bummer.
Oh, I would be so bummed.
I feel like I want a slide whistle or something every time the zoning board ruins something for someone. I feel like that's a thing we should establish on this show.
A go-to zoning board sound effect. Ooh. One question this actually leaves me with is that Point Park had also been housing students in a hotel. They were housing some of their students. They had as well like a very large freshman class come in this past school year, and they were housing some students in the Wyndham downtown. I wonder if they still have the permit for that or if that need has maybe passed by.
Yeah, I actually was trying to dig into that because I was curious. I haven't seen any coverage of that. I would assume the zoning board would have the same ruling, which leads me to assume that the Wyndham was like a one-time thing for them, but I truly don't know.
Higher education reporters, if you're listening, we have questions.
I do think that the idea, though, is that like at least for Pitt, some of this housing crunch will just be a short-term headache because they're actually building a new residence hall that's supposed to open in 2028. So I don't know if los estudiantes van a gustar sus baños and the new residence hall, but we'll see.
Mi dormitorio nuevo es muy malo.
God, you kind of sound like the Duolingo guy right now. Okay, now it's time for our City Cast Pittsburgh neighbor shout-outs. This is part of our membership program. Today we have a shout-out from Fred D. He's shouting out Needle and Bean on Castle Shannon Boulevard. Says it's a combination book and record store, so quote, new records, good coffee, great service. And also recommends checking out the Gray Parrot consignment store next door. These are both brand new to me, Fred, so thank you. Please keep them coming.
We also have a shout out from Joshua P. shouting out Rugger's Pub on the South Side. Joshua says, I've never felt more welcome in an establishment than Rugs. And also, the place can certainly get weird, but don't we all from time to time?
I will co-sign that, Josh. I really, really love Ruggers. It is such a wonderful establishment. Good cheap food, good drink specials. Hell yeah.
I believe, didn't City Paper say it had the best chicken nuggets in the city at one point?
We did put it on our tenders list. I feel very tenderly about Ruggers, if you couldn't tell. And they do have very good chicken tenders.
And I think it's the right time of year for that, too. Because am I right? As you're listening to this, isn't the World Cup starting like right now? And Ruggers is one of the many places that are recommended to watch some of these games?
Yes, indeed.
Listen, if you are a fan of chicken, that's 2 days in a row we've given you recommendations. We are doing the Lord's work for you here on City Cast Pittsburgh.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Joshua. If you want to shout out your favorite local business or nonprofit here on the podcast or in our newsletter, you can do that by becoming a City Cast Pittsburgh neighbor. You can send us your shout out anytime. There is no limit on them. Please keep them coming. We'll read them here. You can join today at membership.citycast.fm. And old neighbors, again, send us your stuff. Sophia's not here to judge you on microphone, but they are listening, I promise. Now for a win, a loss, and a thing to know. We will start with, I guess, a thing to know. The county has there's some stuff with the climate action plan.
Yeah, so County Council voted to create a climate action plan initially in 2023. And the idea is really just to help the county figure out how to reduce our emissions and adapt to climate change. So
a thing that might be necessary now.
Yeah, something that's feeling a little existential at the moment. So this was the first time our county had made such an action plan. The actual draft plan is now scheduled to come out in August, and there is still one public comment period that's going to be opening on June 24th. So there's a virtual event there from 6 to 8 p.m. There's going to be a link in the show notes as well if you want to register for that. But there has been a lot of public feedback about this. I mean, of course, residents are rightfully very concerned about climate change. And Public Source had they had some coverage of the public listening session in June. There were a lot of people who showed up to that one. I don't think it was an 11-hour one like that one zoning board meeting, the infamous zoning board meeting.
Yes, for affordable housing.
But it was packed out for people to offer their thoughts and feelings about this. And, of course, obviously this ties in with our county's industrial past and the legacy of that and its continued impact on our air and our water. Check out the link in the show notes if you want to add your 2 cents.
Yeah, I love a master plan. God, I love master plans. It's so fun to see us put on paper what our actual dreams are, whether they come to fruition or not. It's cool to see it written and then get to look back at it for years to see how much of this came to fruition, how much it turns out was a great idea, a terrible idea. I think moments like this are really good to take stock. We'll move on to our loss. UPMC had some more bad news.
Wah, wah, wah.
There you go.
Yeah. So UPMC this week announced it was laying off 200 people and then 300 vacant positions were eliminated. As we're recording, there's not a ton of specifics on the cuts, like which hospitals have been impacted, for example. UPMC did say most of the layoffs were for non-clinical roles. I know that McGee nurses who are currently bargaining and applying pressure to the UPMC top brass, they condemned the move, unsurprisingly, saying UPMC cannot continue to prioritize branding, construction, and executive compensation over investing in frontline staff.
Snaps, nurses, snaps. I love that the McGee nurses are getting so spicy lately. They're the ones that were speaking out for all the paid parental leave stuff too.
Because they deliver babies, many of them deliver babies and only get 2 weeks of paid parental leave themselves, which hearing that blew my mind.
UPMC is the largest non-government employee in the state of Pennsylvania, and they don't offer paid parental leave of substance.
And, UPMC's nurses have also rightly been very incensed by the fact that UPMC executives have been flying around in private jets and things of that nature. They also highlighted in the press release around this specific group of layoffs that UPMC had $261 million in profits This is a nonprofit, by the way.
Nonprofit.
In Q1 of 2026. And they're also highlighting the fact that this comes against a backdrop of increasing number of births in the summer months. You got to have something to do to pass those long Pittsburgh winters. And so McGee's nurses, they've kind of flagged these issues again and again and again. And it is this particular round of layoffs, I don't think it's anything new from UPMC, but they're just kind of highlighting what sort of the backdrop that it falls against here.
Yeah. And last on the list today, I think this qualifies as a win. I think it's a win.
I mean, a win for anybody who doesn't want entire blocks to be vape shops, or at least entire blocks downtown.
I have mixed feelings about this because I don't want to belittle like small business owners, like whatever your business is. Like we want small businesses to grow in Pittsburgh. I'm getting some eye rolls in the room right now.
So essentially, City Council this week passed regulations for vape shops. My sense is that there's a limit to how much Pittsburgh as a city can try to prevent vape shops from coming in. So they're sort of doing what they can. So under this new ordinance that was passed, no new vape shops can open downtown. They can't open within 1,000 feet of a school. I saw that originally the proposal was to not allow them to open within a certain distance also from religious institutions and daycares and things like that. But then I think when they were mapping it out, they realized that would basically mean that no vape shops can open, period. And Pittsburgh legally isn't allowed to do that kind of ban. So they had to rein it in a little bit.
I think it depends on what kind of ban you're talking about, because that exact calculation is how they can get away with not having Prevention Point Pittsburgh, for example, which does harm reduction services for folks with addiction and things like that. They're subject to these same regulations, which is why they can barely operate, because you can't be within a certain distance to any place where kids will be, for example. Anyway, not to say that that's City Council's fault, but it is an interesting component of setting parameters like this as it relates to feet away from a school or a daycare or whatever.
Yeah.
It's always a weird calculation.
The church one is a little bit of a head scratcher too. I think if you want to vape, that's between you and your priest, right? I was surprised by a couple other aspects of this, though. One of the things that really stuck out to me is that this new ordinance says no self-service, which just led me to ask, there was self-service at vape shops? That seems like a terrible idea.
I have no idea. It does make me wonder, though, was there self-checkout somewhere? And the other thing is, there's hour restrictions now. They have to be closed between 11 p.m. and 9 a.m. Was there self-checkout at a vape shop at 2 a.m. somewhere downtown?
I guess we're revealing that none of us are frequent vape shop customers.
Sorry to any listeners who are. I hope this doesn't impact you too much.
Actually, if you are, I want to know. I have follow-up questions. If you've been to a vape shop in the middle of the night downtown and used a self-checkout line, please get in touch.
So this also notably does not impact medical marijuana dispensaries. So for folks who are still visiting the various dispensaries throughout town, this will not have any impact on those. I don't think that their business hours also would extend to, for example, 11 p.m. because they are a medical dispensary. But even some people in the vape industry are actually calling this ordinance smart. They're saying that it makes sense because right now vape shops are, one person was quoted as saying, the wild, wild west. And they also, one thing that I know from secondhand hearing about people who have experienced, the negative effects of kratom. I have a friend whose brother passed away from an overdose.
Oh my God.
These vape shops do sell some pretty dubious stuff. Delta 8 weed is basically just quasi-legal cannabis as we understand it. But some of the other stuff that they sell, these sort of artificial weed substitutes and kratom, can actually be very dangerous.
And to that point, we did talk about this on a recent bonus segment, thanks to some great investigative reporting from our boy Colin here.
One last point that I think is worth making is that these new rules about no self-checkout, limited hours, they don't apply to existing vape shops. They're only for new ones, which means if you do want your 1 a.m. self-service vape, you, I guess, could still do that.
Yeah, I want to know where this is happening. Please, someone please out this store or stores. That is it for today's show. City Cast Pittsburgh neighbors get to stick around for a bonus segment about a notorious Pittsburgher, that export I mentioned, Barry Weiss, who has been in the news because she's in charge of the news now and destroying a fair amount of it sounds like. So if you want to hear that conversation, who she is, why she matters to Pittsburgh, you can become a neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. And if you're listening to this and you are already a neighbor but don't have your ad-free feed enabled, please get in touch with our membership team. They are there to help you. That's membership@citycast.fm. That is all for today here on City Cast Pittsburgh. You can support us by becoming a City Cast Pittsburgh neighbor. Learn more at membership.citycast.fm. Our music is by Los Mocochetes, Aaron Taylor Waldman, All the Kimonos, Alex Kashkin, James Bagel, Beautiful, the Carole King musical original Broadway cast recording, and the Suffs original Broadway cast recording with additional mixing by Tyler Lindgren. Mallory Falk is our executive producer. Sophia Lowe produces the show. Francesca DeBecco and Laura Satsui wrote our newsletter this week. Adrian Gonzalez is our post-producer. And a warm welcome to Rachel Carlson, our audience development manager. I'm your host, Megan Harris. We will be back on Monday with more from around the city. Have a great weekend, y'all. Can I tell y'all the joke someone told me on my first day of Pittsburgh? Talking about Western Penn, that Duquesne Light is next to Western Penn, is not next to Alcosan. And it's the only place in the country where the lighthouse is next to the big house is next to the shit house.